Welcome, Wayfarers. I'm Laura Lynn, and you're listening to ILA Radio, where we tune into all ways of knowing. Joining us today, we have Heather Melville. Hi, Heather. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Could you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
So my name's Heather Melville, and I've recently started building my own business as a relationship life coach and specializing in helping women uh, recover and heal from toxic relationships. A little tidbit that me and my fiance, we live in a custom built RV full time that we slaved away, built, and then this summer we got to really enjoy. So just little tidbits of me.
Yeah, I love it. So, to get into your astrology, I noticed that you have a lot of Leo energy. Did you know this about yourself?
Well, because I know that, I am very like dabbling in astrology, especially Western. I know a little bit more about Chinese astrology, but the 21st of any month is usually like the cusp, right? So I think that's the Cancer and Leo, but I feel like I've always been drawn more to the Cancer side. I'm a much more emotionally sensitive person, so that's interesting that I've got more Leo there too.
Yeah, so your only Cancer placement is your sun sign, and it's at the 29th degree. And so 29, so there's 30 degrees, and so you're at the very end of it. So that's why like you're right there on the cusp. But the 29th degree also means that you've worked through a lot of the Cancer elements, and so now you're ready to step or sometime along your life, you're going to be ready to step into more of like the Leo kind of attributes.
Hmm.
And then the 29th degree is also a sign that says like something about mastery or like some kind of level of fame. So
Wow.
that's pretty cool. Because now going into all of your Leo placements, you have Leo in the seventh house, and I have that too. So that's like why immediately I was drawn here. Because I also have a lot of Leo energy in the seventh house, but they're different planets. So, but we could still like get into it and talk about what these mean. So to start you off, you have Mercury in Leo, and Mercury is a sign of communication and the way that you think. So, going back to with ILA Radio and All Ways of Knowing, the way that you think is a lot of people go between like the rational or like the empirical. Like that was like the big debate back in the day. The empirical way of knowing is that you can touch it, you can taste it, you can experience it with your senses, versus rational is more logic based. So obviously we all use all of them, but do you lean towards any of them?
I see, and that's so interesting. And I've had a lot of people around me kind of tell me some advice to, as far as when it comes to my clients, to let them know that I am very creative and I am more sensual and more about like what I feel, what I touch, what I see. But I also have a logical background. So I have a electrical engineering degree. So it's like I have both sides of me, but I will say I lean more towards the sense, the empirical, because I realized engineering was not for me. Like I like math, don't get me wrong. Give me a math problem all day, but I like the more sensual, I like the more feeling like being in your body and using your senses. So I think that's probably where I lean.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit before the show, and it was in San Diego where you got your degree.
Mhm.
So could you talk about what led you? Was it going to San Diego and you happened to go to
Well,
this year? How did
so
can
I
you tell the whole
actually I
story?
have two degrees.
Oh,
San Diego State was right out of high school. And it's interesting because I went to San Diego partly because my parents have been divorced since I was 6 months old. So I was kind of like, if I stay in LA where I'm from, what parent do I live with while I'm going to college? Do I just transfer back and forth like I did since I was 6 months old? That seems weird as an adult. So I wanted to be further enough away that I could come visit. But San Diego State was, I originally wanted to be an actress. And so I was very much in the creative side. As I got into theater, I realized I had stage fright. And the big thing that I realized was I struggle to be anything outside of myself. when it comes to my mannerisms, when it comes to my emotions, I really struggle to not wear my heart on my sleeve. And as a good actor, I think you do need to step into somebody else, embody somebody else. So I switched over to lighting, finished that degree, but the electrical engineering was later in life when I realized like, hey, I need a way to make money somehow. And everybody's telling me, hey, you're good at math. Maybe you should do that. So, but yeah, San Diego, I love San Diego. And in fact, we're headed there tomorrow.
Oh, cool. Okay, so back to the Leo. So we talked about your Mercury, then Mars. So Mars is about like your motivation or your drive. It's usually associated with Aries, and I'm trying to figure out if so when people say like you have to use your head or like you have to like be smart about things, and we associate that with the ego. But Aries is the sign, I would say more of like instinct and using like your body and like how to make decisions that way. So do you think that there's ever a time to go between these two, like how to choose when to follow what your ego is saying versus what your instinct is saying?
I think so in this, and it's funny because I kind of like talk about this with my clients, because after a toxic relationship, everything's shot and you don't trust yourself. Your intuition is gone because you're like, how did I stay in this relationship, missed all these red flags? So you don't trust yourself. But so that's something I had to work on as well, as get back into my intuition. And I think you kind of touched on it. It is kind of a balance in the sense that your intuition is going to be the first thing that talks. And whether you're in touch with your body or not, it'll be the one saying, like, it could be that gut response, something in your heart, like a chest pain or anything like that. And then I think that's when, like, the egoic mind, I guess I wouldn't put it egoic, I would go more logical, right? Because then you got to research, okay, well, why am I feeling this way? What is the outcome? Then go into the more logical side. Although they say sometimes just leading with your heart. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. And is research really going to help you make that decision even more, or is it going to flip you and then you go in the wrong path?
That's a very good point that if your heart's already saying something and your mind's like, but I have to run more tests, I have to see if this is all going to work out, then
Right?
you could be missing out on all these opportunities if you had just listened to your heart and moved forward.
Well,
Interesting.
and then that kind of goes back to a lot of us don't take action because we think we need to gather this information and then it puts us off further and then we never do it, right? Because we're like,
Mm.
well, the time has passed.
Yeah. Wow. And then I liked how you touched on trust and how can we build up this trust again within ourselves after betraying our own trust.
That that's a work in progress for me. But I think
Me too. That's why
the
I'm
big
asking.
right. That's the big thing for me. Like, I guess so I guess a good example for me now is um when I transitioned out of being an electrical engineer, the way it kind of happened, it's not that I lost my job, but they kind of forced me into a position that I didn't want to be. And I wasn't ready to transition into my full business yet. And so I was very worried that I wasn't going to follow through on things, that I'd be like having all this time and not follow through on anything and not keep working. And so it took me setting what I was going to do, saying what I was going to do, putting it out there, and then actually following through. And you start to build trust that, hey, I said I'm going to do this, and I did it. And actually, I feel like that was the theme for this summer for me and my fiance. So we took this time to kind of like do like a full cleanse, like a spiritual body cleanse, a body like physical cleanse, and then like a just like an extreme task for physicality. So I don't know if your listeners are open, but we did do some psilocybin on a mountain. And that was just a really clarity, getting back to what really matters in our lives. But we also did a fast as well. We did a 3-day fast and a 4-day fast. And I tell you what, man, those fasts are interesting. And there's one of my favorite Sadhguru. He says, "A man with a full belly has 1,000 problems, but a man with an empty belly has one problem." And it was so true. Like any problems I had, out the window. And then we did end up climbing the highest peak in Arizona, Humphreys Peak. It's 12,600 feet. My point was that I said we were going to do this and we did it. And when you follow through with what you say you're going to do, you start building trust that, hey, I can keep my word. I can have integrity. And so that's one way. The other way is like trusting your instincts, like we were talking about, trusting about your feelings. But that comes from accepting your feelings. A lot of us try to repress them through so many modalities as food, alcohol, drugs, other people. We try to suppress any of these feelings and we don't accept them. And then when they happen, it's like we don't trust them because we're not used to them. We're so busy repressing them that we don't even really trust our own feelings. So that's another way of like really getting into trusting yourself is trusting your feelings.
I think it goes back to what you were talking about with like the embodiment. Like when you can be in touch with your body, then that's how we can start to build up the trust too.
Right, right.
Mhm. All right, so now moving on to Taurus. So we're still going to be talking about your Leo placements, but like as we move through the wheel. So with Taurus, it's about like cultural and like food and language and all of these different ways that I would say are part of health. Like we need to have these different things to be healthy. And you mentioned your fast, and so could you talk more about like what that experience was like? Getting in touch with your body and like what it meant for you. Yeah, just like what it meant to get in touch with your body like that.
I mean, preface with it's not easy. And like, but there's so much research out there about how beneficial fasting can be. And so when I say fasting, we didn't eat it all, but we did have, water. It wasn't like a dry fast. So we had water, we had green tea with no sugar. We also did electrolytes because, you need still salts in your body and stuff. Um, but it's funny, like I would sit there and reflect on it. And it's like, man, I could go for a cheeseburger or I could go for some peanut butter and some fried chicken on the side. So it's just like all these thoughts about food. But what's so interesting is you start to kind of realize, one, how much our life revolves around food. I started seeing how much time I had not cooking, cleaning, or thinking about what I was going to eat. And I could kind of focus that more into like what it is I want for my life. How do I want to show up in the world? And on the last day of the so we did like the 3-day fast and then we did a 4-day fast. I think we're going to kind of do this regularly because it's just so beneficial. And I dropped weight. I got to my goal weight, which was kind of nice. Of course, the moment you eat, it goes right back. But I think there's a settling point for sure. But I just like the fourth day, me and my fiance were sitting outside and we were up in beautiful Flagstaff, just surrounded by trees and just having a lot of moments where we could be so clear with each other on maybe some of our triggers that we've been working through or some of the arguments we've had in the past and like what's happening there, where does that come from? What do we need from each other moving forward? It's just a sense of clarity because all of that energy is going towards digesting food. And then when that energy is not needed, now you have excess energy. Now, don't get me wrong. Again, I was saying like every time I'd be like, oh yeah, what sounds really good? Some chili cheese fries, but I definitely recommend it to anybody. It is difficult and not everybody could do it as far as medical, but you just get so much clarity and it's like you realize that life isn't just about food. Now I am a foodie, I do, and so it's funny that you say tourist is like cultural because I love to cook, I love to bake, and I'm a big traveler too, so I love to try new foods. And I mean, you probably feel it. I was from LA, so there's just all types of cultures, all types of food at your fingertips, and I enjoy that.
I feel like I'm the opposite. My husband's like that. He loves eating a little of everything, but I'm thinking maybe I should go on a fast because when he asked me like, what do you want to eat? I'm like, I don't know because he always just provides the food where I never have to even think about it.
Oh.
So I just, whatever comes, I eat it. Like I don't have to think about it. So I think by being on a fast, how you're saying like, oh, a cheeseburger would sound good. I think I'd be able to actually listen to my body, like what does it actually want versus what is it just given? Because like I'm not
Right.
complaining. Like I love not having to think about it and it just shows up.
Do
But
you have cravings of any type of food, like when you think about
never.
it? Hmm.
No. And that's why it's like, yeah, it's really interesting.
That might be a gift though, because like that's the one thing is fasting does help a little bit with your cravings. And I've got a sugar tooth. Like I will eat, you give me some chocolate every day and I'm set. But like cravings are the hardest thing because it's not really your stomach that's saying it, it's your mind remembering all of the sensations of it. And it goes back to the sensations. That's what I love. Give me the sensations.
Yeah. So so you feel like it's more of a battle with your mind to not eat or like,
100%, 100%.
oh.
Because there's a point too. So the first day is probably the easiest in the sense that you're not really like, yeah, you will feel the hunger pains, but they go away. And it's more of like, well, normally I have a cup of coffee at this time, or normally I have, breakfast, but it's okay, And then the second day, and you're like, yeah, I want all of the food. I want to hit a buffet. I just want to purge myself, get all of this food in here. And then the third day is just kind of like you could eat, you are hungry, but you don't really, it's like I don't even know what I would want. Like I could go for food. And actually the way you break your fast should be very easy because you can't do a lot of carbs, a lot of sugar. You need to kind of do a lot more easy fats and like healthy fats and vegetables and stuff. And like we would break our fast with so my fiance's from Morocco and the typical dish over there is called the tagine, which is just the pot that it's made in. And there's so many varyings with the tagine, but it's just basically some type of protein and vegetables and potatoes and lots of good spices. So we did like a fish tagine and it was lovely, but we were like full instantly.
So you said that you would do it regularly. How often do you think that you would
I,
fast?
I think we're going to try to do it every 2 months. It will be a little bit more difficult because he will be working, and that's hard when you're moving. So I think what we'll do is we'll like start on a Thursday night because again, that first day is fairly easy, so he'll go to work Friday and then probably break it on a Sunday. But the other thing too is you do need distraction. You need to be doing stuff. If you're just sitting around staring at the kitchen, you're just like, oh, I have stuff. And both times we did the fast, we had a full fridge. We had stuff to make. So it's like, oh, you know what we have in there? We have some cottage cheese. I can make some pancakes and some waffles. So you do need a distraction, and I always advise to be in nature anytime you can be. It's my place of being, really. And so being out in nature when you're fasting is a little bit easier because you can be outside, be away from the kitchen, be doing things and distracting yourself from the cravings that are happening. But I think you'll probably do great since you don't really crave as much.
Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting. But I do really love nature, so I feel like by being out in nature has like given me maybe it's like I don't crave because I have everything that I need where I'm not my body is not asking for anything else because like the trees heal me and then the food heals me and it all comes together. So talking about nature, is there a lesson that nature has taught you?
Just to be. It
Hmm.
is what it is. I have this weird kind of feeling, like, because if you think about like the idea of reincarnation and like, you think of all of not just humans, but all of the things that exist, all of life that exists, like what do we come back as? Did Hitler come back as a dung beetle? Was that his fate afterwards? And so I sometimes think like, these tall trees that live forever and they just stand so sturdy through all of it, through everything. And I don't know how like I know that they have like the mycelium underneath, so they have like the interconnection and they can all talk and stuff like that. And I don't necessarily know like what they experience. I'm not a tree, but I'm like, I wonder if that is the step up from being a human, is you come into a tree, you have all this wisdom, you stay here for almost centuries. I mean, there's a lot of trees out there that are centuries old. Is that the next step of being a human after being a human? Is it being a tree because you're here for so long?
Yeah, I would love that. I think that would be so cool.
Right, right. And you're there for everything. I do get worried about like forest fires, right? Because that knocks you out. But I just with nature, yeah, it's just everything is as it is and it is as it should be, and just I guess it's like nature for me is like coming home. It's just we're all there together. And then of course, you're getting great oxygen, right? You're not getting the fumes of the city. And just it's just so beautiful that it's like, how can I be upset up here? And
So have you found community within nature, or like how has community and nature come together, if it has, or
hmm,
what's your view on that?
it's just funny that I kind of do this, and this might be a little weird, but certain trees, I look at them and it's like I'm called to them to touch them.
Yeah.
And usually I'll just kind of put my hand on them and I try to sit there and listen. Sometimes it's my ego pump jumping in, saying things, but other times I can hear it through my heart and just kind of hear like how old they are, how old the tree is, what message they want to give me. If it's just a small little word of like gratitude or wisdom or relaxation. So it's kind of funny that I do that, but I don't do it to every tree. Right? I'm not walking up to every tree touching it. But there's some trees that I'm just called to that I'm like I need to touch this tree for some reason. I don't know why. I'm a tree whisperer.
Yeah, no, I'm very
But
much the same way.
right. Um, but as far as community, I mean, I do love animals too, and like so when we were up in Flagstaff, there's just free range cows walking around everywhere. And you can kind of feel their energy, feel how, if they're agitated or if they're scared because there's so many people around. But it's almost like, we're all here together. We're all existing at the same time. And it's like that kind of a community in the sense that I'm living and you're living.
hmm And Sagittarius is also the sign of travel and like getting new experiences, and like foreign languages. And I really want to talk about your van. So, how did that get started? And how have you been traveling? Where have you been traveling?
Well, okay, so I will preface, I have been to, I think it's about 18 countries now. So I lived in Germany for a little bit, traveled around there, and then, my fiance is from Morocco, so we've traveled a little bit around Morocco and stuff. I'm a big traveler. Like, if I could make traveling into a career, I would. I also really enjoy finding cheap flights for people and like just finding ways to travel cheaply. But as far as the bus goes, it was like probably 10 or 13 years ago, I met somebody who had a van, and this was before van life was big. And I thought that was the coolest thing. And I was with my ex at the time, and I was like, there's no way I could do this. We can't even go camping together without him screaming at me. So that's not going to happen. But then when I met my fiance, he had the same dream of doing a van life. And it's funny because, I used to give him a hard time that he's like a pack, not a pack rat, a hoarder. But I realized that he collects things because he sees value in them and sees what they could potentially be. So it's funny that we've been building this bus in our mind like since we've been together, but we finally like let's try it. Let's see if we can find a fairly decent priced bus or van. And one day the auction was happening and they had a fleet of buses. And, if you've ever been in an auction, there's a lot of pressure. So you're like, oh my God, I got a bid. Oh my God. And so we got it. even though at first he was very hesitant. He's like, we shouldn't have done this, but we did. And so that kind of goes back to the other thing about trust is that we'd been talking about this for a long time, telling our friends and family we'd love to do this, and we did it. We followed through. And it was not an easy task, especially because we tried to be as frugal. Well, frugal is the wrong word. We tried to be as creative and low cost as possible. So anything, we would find anything and we would just be like, hey, we could use this in the bus somehow. Hey, this wood we could use. So all of our buses almost like repurposed. I mean, a few things like most of the stuff we bought off of eBay, like as far as our oven, that was eBay. Our fridge is off of eBay, but everything else, like the apartment we used to live in, people would just, dump cabinets or whatever in like the big area. And we'd be like, that's some nice wood. I think we could use that somehow. And so we just had this hodgepodge of wood and we'd just like take it apart and use it for something else. Like I don't know, should I show you? Well, here I'll turn it
People don't
around,
want to
see if
watch
you
it on
can
YouTube.
see
Yeah.
it. There's if you can see the painting up there, the sunset.
Oh
Can you see
yeah.
that?
Hmm.
Okay. So well, I painted that, but that's actually a TV screen.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, we just took it apart. And so behind that is his closet. And then we were near we where we used to live, there was a high school, and they just had a big old thing of tennis net that they were just going to throw away. So we grabbed it and used it for some of our shelving as like a way to keep things in and stuff like that. But so we had the bus parked at a friend's house about 45 minutes outside of Tucson because we had a lot of theft, unfortunately. They stole our catalytic converter. And I was a little bummed about this, but like they somehow broke into the back window, they popped it out, and they stole all his tools, which, yeah, that was expensive. And he was bummed about it. I was upset because they stole the window. And that is a hard window to replace. So we had to build it somehow. But so we were getting a lot of theft. We moved it out to our friend's property, and she was kind enough to let us, make a mess as we built it. But over a year, every weekend, we would drive 45 minutes. We'd get like maybe 16 hours to build, and we would, make dinner for her, and she's got a few kids, so we'd play with them, and then drive back, go to work, and then the whole week be planning. And it was a lot. It was a lot, and I always make it as a test of a relationship, right? Like building something with your partner. Yeah, see, you're shaking your head like, yeah, creating a house with your partner, that, you're going to run into fights, you're going to run into disagreements, but building something like this, I think we did, it was just a proof of our relationship that we have mutual respect, that we can talk to each other. And yeah, we can have disagreements and still be okay and not like hold a grudge and be resentful. There are still a few things that I'm like, I said that. I did say that. Hmm. Hmm.
Yes. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right. I did mention that and you just like brushed it away and then here we are. But we joke about it. But yeah, and so we've been living in it now full time almost 2 years in October. Another test of a relationship. Can you live in 80 square feet and still want to be around each other, But so the idea also behind it, one, it's our home. We built every inch of it. Like we know how everything is. We made it custom to how we want. And being up in Flagstaff this past summer was just icing on the cake. We got to feel what it's like to be, I mean, we feel it every day, but like to be out in nature, away from civilization, and get to feel what we built this for. But the other idea is that at some point we'd like to buy property in this, beautiful country. We don't know where. And so we've got a house to go with us to go find where we want to land.
Mhm. Okay, so now I want to talk about your moon sign, and you have it in Pisces. And this whole time, like throughout, you've been like sprinkling how you love togetherness and about connecting with each other. And like the moon typically represents like your emotions or your inner world or like how you feel. And Pisces is the sign of togetherness, of bringing everybody together. Looking at the ways of knowing, it's a spiritual way of knowing and it's really rooted in intuition. But the other ways that I've noticed, it's 12th house energy, and 12th house is drugs. And so when you're talking about your psilocybin trip, could you talk a little bit more about that and like how it brought to everything together for you? Did you already have this like sense of togetherness being a Pisces moon, or how did that whole spiritual way of knowing come out with you?
So I'm when it comes to I'm not a big fan of organized religion because I feel judged and I feel like they're pushing something on that I don't necessarily
Mhm.
believe. But what I do believe is that we all come from the same thing. Like I almost feel like we're all just like little snippets of this big ball of
Yeah.
light energy. And we're all down here to have experience where we communicate with each other and remember what we are. And so I let that lead me in the sense, although, don't get me wrong, I get my ego in the way and I'm like, "Dude, that person is so stupid and they don't deserve blah, blah, blah." And it's like, wait a minute, we're all the same. We all have issues, blah, blah, blah. But what I think about is if we all realize that we're all the same, that we're all connected, then hurting each other is like chopping your own arm off. You're really, and when I do these psilocybin trips, it really kind of brings me back to any little problem that I'm having with somebody else or any judgment that I'm having about somebody else doesn't really matter because we're all connected. We're all the same. And how we treat others is a reflection of how we treat ourselves, or it should be at least, right? So if we're treating ourselves very nicely, we should be doing that to other people because they're just us in a different body. So and it's like we in the day to day we get bombarded with all of this stress, all of these problems, all these expectations of other people. And the psilocybin, I think, kind of brings you back to source, brings you back to that realization that, hey, you're just here to experience. And that challenge, that problem is just another experience.
So do you ever get like insights on how to solve the problem, or is it more of just like let it roll off your back and like let it work out itself out?
Kind of both. Um, Sometimes I'll get like oh, I know exactly how I should go forward, especially like when it comes to this. I'm trying to build a business, trying to build awareness that, hey, I'm here to help and I might have some answers that might suit you. And if I don't, I'm willing to find the answers for you or help you find the answers. So like in my business, I've gotten a little bit more clear from some of those times, but other times it's just like, hey, that's just one more challenge to build up those muscles. Like that's just one more thing. And that's what I've come to really realize is all of these problems, all of these challenges, these experiences we're supposed to have because they push us into a new era. This is how we grow. This is how we expand. And that's the other thing with those fastings and stuff, really pushes you out of your comfort zone so that when it comes time to doing something you really care about that's going to take you outside of your comfort zone, you're a little bit more used to it because you've already pushed yourself already. So you're like, you know what? What's another inch out of this zone that I feel comfortable in? So yeah, yeah. I read if you ever heard the book How to Change Your Mind. It was a Netflix series. It was Dr. Michael Pollan, all about psilocybin and LSD and stuff like that. And he talks about that. Honestly, people should be doing it once every 2 to 3 months, just a little trip, just to kind of reset yourself into what it is you want in your life, your purpose, and connecting to others. That togetherness really helps you feel like you're not alone here.
Yeah, I love that. But you talked about like pushing yourself out to the edges of your comfort zone. And so I'm looking where you have Saturn because Saturn is the sign of of structure and having like strong boundaries. And you have it in Capricorn. Oh, okay. So is it easy for you to have strong boundaries?
Well, it's funny because I talk about boundaries when I'm helping women because most of the time, our boundaries are shot. We're so busy people pleasing that we don't focus on what we need. And that's the other thing too. A lot of us don't really understand what boundaries means. Boundaries is about you. Boundaries is what you let affect you. And I mean, they always give that great example of like you are this house and you've got this fence around you, and the people that have access to you can, come through the fence and they can maybe affect your opinions, maybe affect your ideas if you want them to. And then you have the boundaries where, maybe you have these naysayers around you, but you don't let it affect you. So boundaries isn't about keeping out, other people. It's about keeping out their energy, keeping out their ideas that affect you, and I have very much struggled with that, hence why I fell into the relationship I was in. Um, Engineering for me was not because I really wanted it. It was because what other people expected me to do and their opinions of who I should be. And that's not having strong boundaries because it wasn't really what I want. I started having panic attacks in engineering school because I was like, this isn't what I want to do. I don't give a shit about this. Excuse my language. But but it's interesting. So what does it mean then that the Saturn is in the Capricorn and that's part of my boundaries? What does that mean actually?
Yeah, so you have it in the 12th house. And interestingly, I have it in the 12th house too. Not Saturn, but like Capricorn. So let me tell you what it's like for me, and then we could bring in the Saturn part.
Okay.
So we also both of us have was it your Neptune and Uranus, yeah. So Neptune is like positivity and like kind of dreamly kind of vibe, and then Uranus is rebellion and like thinking of new ways to do something. And we both have it in this 12th house of like mysticism where or it's like really dark, but we're hopeful in this darkness. So like even though we may not like being in the dark, like if things are happening in our lives, we still have this hope that's inside, and we know that we can build on this. And so for me, it's this is how I've built all of my companies is through going into the dark and like coming back with like all like the treasures that I have found by digging into myself and while being in this like dark period in my life. So now with your Saturn, it's that you're building these boundaries in the dark. And maybe it's like you're trying to figure out where your lines are because they are in the dark. And so you have to like dig into yourself to know where these lines are so that you can then tell other people where these lines are so that they don't cross them.
That that makes so much sense. So I originally, when I was training to be a coach, I was like, well, I don't know what can I help people on? I want to help people on everything. And they focus on like, well, what have you experienced? Because experience teaches us so much. And a toxic relationship, like that's dark right there. The stuff that I experienced. I have a smile on my face right now, but like the memories are pretty dark. And it's funny because my fiance was a little worried that if you're going to focus on this, are you just going to keep bringing this up? Is this just going to be some wound that you keep breaking the scab because you're going into the dark to get all that knowledge so you can help other people who are in this dark place. And so that makes sense with the Capricorn and the Saturn, that I'm creating boundaries in the sense that I'm not going to keep going back into that dark place. It's just to go back and like, oh, I forgot this briefcase in here, let me just come back with it. So that makes so much sense because I just finished this book called Whole Again. Highly recommend for anybody who's dealt with a toxic relationship. But yeah, it's like the whole time I'm reading it, I'm like, this is just so upsetting. This is so dark, like, and then, you start thinking about what you've been through and how this applies. And you're like, damn it, why didn't I think about this? Or like, oh, that's exactly how I was. I should have been different. And so it's like putting the boundaries to be like, that was the past. I'm learning, I'm growing. I'm now being in this healing journey where I can help others with that same thing. And here I am loving myself so much that I am capable to love somebody else the way I do, you know? So that makes a lot of sense.
When you were talking, it sounded like you were referencing Chiron because Chiron is this wounded healer where they can heal because they've been wounded. And with you, it's in Cancer in your sixth house. So sixth house is like routines, daily life, health, and yeah. So Capricorn is, I mean, not Capricorn, Cancer is about nurturing and caring for this work life. And then that's interesting because it's the complete opposite of Capricorn. So they're like this push and pull between the two. So could you talk about how you keep yourself nourished? You talked about being close to water, which is also a Cancer thing, but um, other ways that nourish you?
Yeah, I mean, nourishment, it can be very physical in the sense of like what you eat and stuff, but I also think it's mental as well. I am a fitness person. Anything to do with like working my body out in some way, I just get a kick out of it. I love to do it. I've always been active, love to hike, love to swim, bike. Hopefully this time we go out to San Diego, I'll get a chance to surf. And I weight lift. I just love to be outside and active and moving my body and pushing it to its limit. So in that sense, it's nourishing my body in the sense it's nourishing my muscles, but it's also nourishing just like the strength I feel. I feel so strong. I also love to do yoga as well. And so some of the moves that I can do, I just get a kick out of them. I'm like, look at this. I'm just on my hands right here, and the rest of my body's over there. So I nourish myself in that way. I also do nourish when it comes to like creativity. I just crave to be creative. In fact, like so we did a lot of arts and crafts while we're up in Flagstaff, and that's the one thing I love about our bus is it not only does it have artwork everywhere of us, but we have everything you could possibly need. We have our whole painting kit, so we can do paint. And I have a little magnet. My fiance painted his own, and I painted my own. And I tell you what, a small canvas, you think it's easy. It's hard to paint a picture on it. I would get up and get out, but I can't. I'm kind of stuck in where I'm sitting. But I love to just be creative. I love to paint, and that's the one thing I will say too about my fiance is he really opened that up about me that I do love to be creative. So I crave that, like in some way, whether it's creating these macrames for the coconut planters, or painting, or drawing, or we also found some really cool walking sticks that we made. And instead of using like a burner, like a wood burner, he had a big old magnifying glass, and we would just sit there with the sun and just slowly burn these really cool things. And I'll have to send you some pictures of it.
Yeah,
But
I'll put it on the
I feel
website for
like
everyone to see.
yeah, yeah. I feel like that's another way of nourishing that I think a lot of people miss is the
Yeah.
creativity part. We are creative beings.
Mhm.
And although a lot of I hear it all the time. People be like, "Oh, I'm not creative." No, you are. You're just not practicing that muscle, and you haven't figured out the modality that you like to create in. Like I like to write. I think I can be creative, but man, is it painful for me because I don't like to go back and edit. I'm not a big editor when it comes to writing. So, but that's not a modality for me that makes me feel creative. But so and then of course I try to watch what I eat for the most part. Again, I have that sugar tooth that just pops in. It's just like, ooh, muffins, ooh, pecan pie. So, but like just trying to get as much fruits and vegetables, and I know that you feel better too when you eat certain things. And I cook actually. I think the big thing when it comes to nourishing is I just don't eat out a lot, because then I'm aware of what's going in. Granted, I don't know what's going in the fruits and vegetables we're buying at the store these days, but at least I know what's going in my pan, what seasonings, I'm not adding like MSG or something like that. But yeah, those are the ways I kind of nourish myself.
Mhm. So we are out of time, unfortunately, because there's so many other questions that I want to ask. But so for my last one, it's talking about being a polymath, and so, like you said, you can do the math. You did do the engineering degree, so there's for your natural sciences. For social sciences, now you're a coach, so you're working with people, helping them with the humanities. You talked about how spiritually connected you are to nature and what it means to be alive, to be human. And then the last one is the arts, and we just talked about that now. So now, as a polymath, do you have any last words
As a polymath, is that so? What's the term mean, polymath?
to that you are contributing in some way to those four disciplines? And so that's where I lay them out for you that you are in fact a polymath.
Well, honestly, the biggest realization I've ever had in my life was that everything is balance. Everything is balance. You can't have more than one thing. And so I feel like we should all be polymaths, like, but just you can't lean on one side in the sense that even if it is your creative side, you still need your logical side, or even if it is your spiritual side, you still need to be here in the world. You don't have to be of the world, but you are here still. So you can't be up in the clouds with whoever your deity is. So honestly, I feel all of life is just balance of everything.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that you're right. That is like a very good way to describe polymathy because living in a specialized world where everybody has to pick just one thing, I think now it's becoming more acceptable to love a little of everything and see like how you can combine it to be authentically you. And I think that's like the message that I'm trying to get out there with polymathy. So thank you
Cool.
so much for being here, Heather. It was so much fun to talk to you. I feel like we could talk for hours, so we'll definitely have to have you back on.
Right? Seriously, I could talk it hours for you. I love your energy, and this has been fun. I am like, did I work or was this just talking?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I love about it because I really did want to follow this structure to get through all 12, but we were just jumping around. We didn't hit all of them, but I think that's okay because the things that we did hit on, I feel like they are pretty powerful. So,
Well, and if we want to come back, just let me know so we can finish the other.
the other ones, for sure. All right. Well, where can people find you?
So I have my website, healthyrelationships.info, and then the Instagram that I'm more on. I just started a TikTok, but we'll see if I really follow through. But the Instagram is healthyrelationships.coach. So I just feel free to DM if you're interested. I also hold monthly webinars that you can find through Eventbrite. And I think, once you upload this, I can include some links for when I do the webinars as well. And then I also do a monthly news or a weekly newsletter as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you so much, Laura. This is great.
And that's it. Thank you again, Heather, for joining us and walking us through your journey of knowing. You can learn more about Heather or myself down below with our links. And to explore your own path of discernment, you can visit theornellian.com/ILA Institute to learn more about our courses and all of our other offerings. Thank you so much for being here. If today's conversation resonated, please take a moment to rate and review ILA Radio wherever you listen. Your feedback helps others discover these conversations and deepens our collective exploration of truth, purpose, and becoming. Until next time, keep listening to your mind, your body, your soul, and your spirit. Thanks, everyone. Bye.